As we start in this third video on continual improvement, you might be getting a little surprised at how much I'm talking about management rather than workers. And I think it's important that we realize that management sets the tone for any lean enterprise. It doesn't come from the workers. I think all too often organizations want to do lean because they believe that the mistakes are all made at the workplace level and not that they are responsible for the mistakes of the organization, but that the workers, if they could only do the job right, we would be in such a better place. So in this third video, what we want to talk about is discovering management's role in value addition. Now, as we continue this, we'll talk about data and what we do next with this. Now, Taiichi Ohno, in his most important book, Workplace Management, made the following comments about fine adjustments. And he said, this is really key. He said, the term fine adjustment has a hidden meaning that should be understood, especially by top management. Everyone knows that things do not always go according to plan. But there are people in the world who recklessly try to force a schedule, even though they know it may be impossible. They will say, it's good to follow the schedule, or it's a shame to change the plan. And they will do anything to make it work. But as long as we cannot accurately predict the future, our action should change to suit situations. In industry, it's important to enable production people to cope with change and to think flexibly. They would need to wait for the right opportunity to make change happen. The Toyota production system is still not perfect. He wrote this in 1989. More development is needed on fine adjustments. And JKK was one of those developments that happened about 8 years after he made this statement. Now, about the time he was writing this, Hewlett-Packard was developing what they called the process of management. And the process of management is distinct from content, strategy, or tactics, and analysis tools like statistics and graphs that enable this process. This process of management can be exercised everywhere, and it's based on the PDCA model of process improvement. So what we're doing is, in the final step, we're executing the check step, and we're creating a stimulus for future continual improvement. So self-assessment is a critical effort, and we see that there are 5 steps that we have to go through before we get to this feedback loop for continual improvement. Establish a common purpose, build shared objectives, develop an integrated plan, lead to local action, and evaluate results and processes. And now, after about 40 years since this process was developed by HP, it is still being taught as an introductory course for managers who are recently promoted. And I think what's important is that the world needs scientific leadership, not just scientific management. So Frederick Taylor, in his 1911 book, talked about the principles of scientific management. But we really need to elevate this from Gemba 1 to Gemba 3. And that means scientific leadership. How do we assure that our organization has the enthusiasm necessary to move forward and meet our long-term visionary objectives? And so I want to go through each of these 5 different categories. So this establish a common purpose. This is about purposeful behaviors. And this is, in each of these steps, it's the application of the Plan, Do, Check, Act to the process of daily management. And so here we see we have to communicate with customers so we understand what are the challenges and requirements of the customers. We have to study our environment to find out what are the effects that the environment can use or have that impact our processes or will change our decisions. We have to align with organizational objectives so we make sure that we're all working together, moving in the same direction. And we have to be willing to innovate, to let go of old things. I love the definition of innovation by Joseph Schumpeter. And he said, it's the planned abandonment of legacy or old ways of doing things. And it's the creative destruction of those things so we can embrace the new. And we have to also analyze and integrate the data. So we're challenging our same old way of working by asking, what if? What could we do if these things change? And we're asking about the positives for innovation and the negatives that create unreliable conditions. So purposeful behaviors are about understanding what can create change in our situation. Then building the shared objectives is about the visionary behaviors. What are the things we value together? What is it we are trying to accomplish? Do we really want to have people have the ability to make individual choices? Or do we want to make the choices for them? That's a very big difference in terms of command and control versus what people sometimes call a laissez-faire organization or this self-regulated management system. How do we communicate the vision? Does everybody share in that vision? Are our visions integrated? So have we deployed the vision to all part of the organization so everyone knows how they contribute to the direction we're going? Have we involved people in building the vision so we see there is a single vision for the organization? I like the verse in the gospel, in the Epistle of John, where he said, when there is no vision, the people perish. We have to share in that common vision, and we have to maintain alignment to the vision. Our work needs to be moving in that same direction of the vision so that we can get to the right results. And then finally, we have to measure performance against the vision. A vision without a goal is meaningless. So we have to have a goal, and the vision has to be described in some sort of measurable way so we can say we're making progress towards that. And then how we are actually using the organization's resources needs to be aligned to that same vision and the measurement system so that it will deliver the outcomes. So we have to encourage the team, discuss and agree on the working philosophies, the practices, the processes that we're going to use to be able to move us forward. And we have to describe the opportunities for improvement in ways so that everyone can understand their particular role and how they contribute to getting this to this visionary state that we are projecting for the organization. Next is this idea of developing an integrated plan. And so these are the planning behaviors. So do we use effective planning techniques? So we have to ask ourselves a question, how close is our plan to our actual performance? In doing some recent surveys in companies, I've seen that most plans actually take twice as long as originally planned to realize the results. And that's not acceptable. So this is that we're going to spend a lot more resources than we had bargained for or budgeted to get this done. That means we will make reductions in capabilities delivered, or we will reduce the value that we're going to contribute to the customers. So it will not be what we originally stated. We have to identify what are the appropriate resources, and particularly the competence of people that we need, or the capabilities of the equipment or processes to be able to perform. And then how do we have this shared sense of responsibility? This is the JKK concept coming back. How do we actually make sure that people can do these things? And then how do we manage the resource flow so they're not overworked people or processes that are overburdened? And so then we have to factor in what is the risk? How do we evaluate progress? Where do we see risk coming into this situation? And remember, risk means that we are not able to accomplish our objectives. That means something is standing in the way of our achieving our plans. So we have to understand, how do we actually get agreement between the objectives that we're establishing and, if you will, challenging but realistic targets that are achievable given the budget and the capability we have to apply. So we come to lead the local action. This is the role of the supervisor, basically. And the supervisor or the team leader needs to facilitate the action, have periodic reviews. Are we making progress towards our targets? They have to get feedback from customers or related individuals who will be recipients of this change. They have to support and develop the people involved in this system. And most importantly, they have to lead by example. They have to be the role model for the type of behavior that we're looking for in this particular process. And they have to be the role model for the outcome that we'd like to achieve. And finally, they have to recognize and reward the contributions of the people. And just saying thank you sometimes is enough. To say that, somebody did a good job on something. It gives them pride in work and creates their enthusiasm, which motivates them. In all cases, this behavior must be authentic. And that means that the things we're saying from our mouth, the words that we speak about the people or about the process, and the actions and our philosophy are all aligned. Finally, we review the results in the process. So what does the customer think about the final deliverable? Is the company satisfied with the financial performance of this? What is the process that we see and the results that we're going through? What are the opportunities we see for improvement or further improvement in the process? And then have we actually found a way to celebrate the success of this process and then recognize the people for the work that they've done? So all of these things are important contributors. And business leaders drive the improvement process. They have to document their own process and specify their work activity. They have to evaluate the quality of incoming information and materials, follow standard work procedures and checklists, self-inspect the quality of their own tasks, evaluate the quality of outgoing work and information, assess satisfaction of the next step process customers, determine how to improve standard work procedures, consider how to improve their own contribution to work outcomes of their end-to-end business systems, participate in process and product improvement teams, enhance the skills and competence required to conduct the work, and maintain a positive attitude and mindset about the work. This is what the supervisor or the business leader can do to create this situation where they can be seen as a role model for change in the situation. And the mistake is treating everyone the same way. One size does not fit all. What works for the workers does not work for the supervisors. What works for the supervisors does not work for the business leaders. Each must have their own approach towards improvement, their own way of looking at it, so that they're not applying the wrong tools or the wrong thinking processes at their particular applications. Not all problems are solved in the same way. It's not a cookbook solution. We have to apply some thinking to choose which methods do we use, which tools do we use. Not all solutions are readily implementable for quick gains. Some will take some organization building or some restructuring or redesign of the re-engineering of the processes. And not everyone needs to learn the same methods and tools. I remember when I was teaching the executive team at Hewlett-Packard, the CEO, John Young, said, "Why do you think I need to understand a Pareto chart? Do you think I don't? Or a fishbone diagram?" Those were things that we were learning basically back in engineering school. Make the training relevant to the person and the job and the expectations that are held of them. But we do need to have a consistent approach to deliver standard value. And so we have to think, how do we put this change structure into our organization in a way that makes sense and in a way that can be integrated across all levels of the organization? So thank you for your attention, and we'll take a brief pause and you can come back to the last video.